Did you ever feel that you were in a situation that you were being harassed by the police, like showing up too often or anything like that?
110%. Yes.
Talk about that.
Well, just the fact being, even like, I think there's an incident 6 months after it was court ordered visitation with access, joint custody, that he had breached the court order so many times, and there would just be bizarre excuses from their legal representation as to why that would happen, such as like not understanding what the words "at" or "near" meant, but thought that like he like partake. It's so confusing, but needless to say, there was an incident about 6 months later where, I mean, even throughout the course of the 6 months, I'd be getting phone calls like stating, your mother, your child called us to say that like she's seen you driving down the street and then coming to her house, and oddly enough, I was a courier that had to deliver items to her residence, where technically she lived with her mother, and so the envelopes would be for her mother, and I mean she would deny the delivery service, and it was strange to say the least. But anyways, we just get phone calls stating like, oh, they had say you came to the house, and it's like, yeah, for my job.
You get phone calls from the police.
Yeah.
Would they ever show up? Or just do it all over the phone?
Well, I was living in Balgoni at the time with my parents, which is a town outside,
Sure.
about 20 kilometers. So, from my understanding, is that if they wanted to task anything, they would have to do it through the RCMP.
Mm-hmm. Right.
Yeah. And so, strangely enough, there was an incident where 6 months into having joint custody and visitation access and all that, there was a breach again, and individuals had showed up, and then the police at the same time were there, and I was trying to talk to the police, and they're basically like, just drop your kid off and get out of here, in the midst of like guys yelling out, these random individuals yelling out, oh, I'll kill your whole family, but yet they're standing there doing nothing. And then oddly enough, I'm thinking like, kill my family, but 6 months prior I'm being charged with uttering threats for driving away from a guy threatening me. It just did not make any sense to me. So after that, I was getting phone calls even about just like, you assaulted him, and I would laugh and be like, I assaulted a guy that I had court ordered to not be at or near my child. It's like, how does that even make sense? Like, or even like, what about the death threats to my family? Are you like, is there anything going to be done about that? And just, oh, well, I don't know what you're talking about. You'd have to make a complaint about that, and just like a complaint of a crime that happened in front of them. I'm not understanding this, and frankly, I'm going to be honest. From 6 months prior, with just the false accusations never being dealt with criminally on the other end, I was hesitant to want to deal with the police even, and try and get some sort of justice for myself. So yeah, it created a psychological problem with me where I couldn't trust them to basically do their jobs. So I was going through a exchange program through the YWCA, where I was accosted on Christmas Eve by an individual that was serving me notice for a lawsuit that had to do with her boyfriend, in terms of some damage that was done to his vehicle. With that, I was actually even criminally charged for, but never was convicted. And so, upon calling the police to have them come do something about the assault, the person that assaulted me had a witness, and they corroborated that this individual never touched me or accosted me in the way that basically what happened was she had grabbed my arm and forcefully pulled it to give me an envelope of a lawsuit, basically a processor server or whatever, and inadvertently like made my son fall over into a snowbank where he hurt himself at the age of like 2 years old. So I was very upset at the fact that the YWCA, when I contacted them about like what are the consequences of not following through with the confidential times, they basically said to me like, you'd have to go back to court. And following through where just from my understanding is of that one individual that had agreed to go through the program, if they breached any of the conditions, that they would not be eligible to continue doing so. Well, it was like we were in mediation with Family Justice at the time for more access for me, because I wanted to eventually lead into 50-50 shared custody, which is only beneficial for the child and obviously both parents in terms of just equal time and less financial stress on one or the other for child support purposes. And I mean, I just figured it's the best interest of the child. So because initially the first court hearing, the offer that was given to me was 1 day a month. So that was the initial proposal that I assumed was going to lead into parental alienation. And so we were going through mediation, and the program, it stopped working because of my accusations of having it breached. And then from my end, it was like, I'm not going to keep going here if I'm going to be accosted by people, which is what was happening prior, and what even led up into the child exchange program. So for me to like resume seeing my son was I had to go back to court and pay money to a lawyer to have it be known that like the confidential time was breached, and just the mediation even more so wasn't working out too, because in I think a year and a half I never had one extra minute with my son, even though the mediator said it might take 3 meetings, which I think turned into about 20 or 25 with not one extra minute. So I just was mentally broken and like trying to fight, spending all the money I had. I spent my life savings. I was planning on buying a house for me and my child, and it didn't work out. So I just basically had run out of money and mental energy to continue like fighting. And so I would politely ask the mother of my child through emails that if I could just like go back to like picking him up or even meeting somewhere at a McDonald's or something, and I would just like bring a witness, and no, I just got denied. So eventually I came to the conclusion that it's like, if I was to press the issue of breaches of court orders, I was in fear, and I mean like I have love for the mother of my child, but I didn't want to see her either go to jail or be fined thousands of dollars. That would I was assuming would affect the boyfriend's frame of thinking and do something drastic like hurt my son or anyone involved in the situation, or just I don't know. I was in fear for my son's safety basically from everything that was happening, and I don't know if I was over exaggerating things, but I just wasn't in a good place at the time. So I thought I'd take a step back from seeing him, and then through emails politely ask, to just see him voluntarily, which I didn't think was harmful. And so, I mean, that being said, it's just the false accusations would just keep continuing every time I'd try and contact her to see my son. And it just turned into like, bizarrely enough, like me contacting the mother of my child was harassing her boyfriend informally, is what the police were trying to inform me of. So that being said, is I think January 2015 is the last time I seen my son. Oh, I lost the ability to have access to my son through over the course of the year of 2015. I became really distraught from not seeing him, and I stopped being able to sleep and get a meaningful deep sleep where I was restful for work the next day. So I had gone to a doctor to ask if I could get some sort of sleeping pills, and then he denied me of that saying that if I work hard enough, I should be able to like fall asleep, and I was giving them all the details of exactly what was happening with my child custody issues, and being harassed by police basically, and this boyfriend, and it just kind of went over his head where I don't think he could understand what was going on, so he just denied me and said basically like I should just try, relaxing techniques, and but I was in some serious trouble where I really needed like something like a hypnotic, so eventually I just like started using drugs and alcohol as a form of like trying to put my mind off from the matters, and I think I was becoming like manic a bit, over what had happened with just the false accusations and police doing nothing about it. So it came down to eventually I was getting mental health warrants put on me by my ex because she would look at my Facebook profile and my feed and the comments that I were making, which were like prior to even me stop seeing my son, were just things like, like, oh, the police won't help me. Like I've had guys threatening to kill my family. I need a weapon. I need a gun to protect myself. The police won't do anything for me. And just, I don't know, you don't, it's not, how do I put this? It's not ideal to put things like that on social media, but yet, and in a stressful time, and just, you're trying to vent and you don't really have anyone to talk to that can relate to you. These are the types of things a person can do to like harm themselves, in terms of like people taking it out of context and just
Deliberately in this case.
yeah, exactly. So yeah, I just was getting mental health warrants from police even too, where I was calling them to talk to the chief of police and just ask like, why can't you guys do anything? And from my understanding, like, it's just a matter of like, it should be easy to talk to him considering his number's in the phone book, his office number. So there was days and days and days that would go by where I would call and just politely ask, and they would say no, like almost in the context of they knew who I was and why I was even asking. And I would even talk to numerous officers about the issue of just like, yeah, I know there's a formal complaint process to go through, but I didn't get anything satisfactory back from it. So, and then I'd gone through the ombudsman too, and same thing, just never got anything back that would like be deemed satisfactory. So I just decided, like, you know what, I'm gonna call the chief of police and be like, do you know what's going on here? Because this seems strange with the disclosures that I'm getting myself, where things just like the file was tasked to an officer and then it was given to another one, and when making complaints to a staff sergeant, being told they can't do that. Just little things like that. And so it turned into you're harassing us. And I'm like, oh, that's funny. You're getting a taste of your own medicine now, aren't you? Right? So I mean, that being said, it didn't go over well one day where I just said, like, hey, I won't ever call again, but just know this, like, don't be bringing your corruption at me anymore, because there's going to be consequences. And I think they took that into context, where eventually the next day it turned into like, we have a mental health warrant on you. And they took me to the hospital, and I was making claims of PTSD from being a victim of domestic abuse and false accusations, which in itself is just domestic abuse. And I mean, financial strain, and all the above that can fall under domestic abuse. And they were claiming that I was delusional, that like the things I was talking about with the police and situations with the mother of my child and her boyfriend were just delusions of persecution. So that being said, is I took time off of work, and upon being off for a couple months on short-term leave, I had my mother as a witness, who works in the health district, come to a meeting with a psychiatrist where he literally said, I don't have time to listen to you. And I was confused by that, because he had been signing disability forms for me to be eligible to have financial stability for my insurance company through my work. And so I was confused about that, even where just, I don't know what to think. Even at this point in time, in this very moment, I'm thinking to myself, like, there's something bigger going on than what I can even comprehend. And so I had gone to get a second opinion. And from my understanding, too, is the doctor's notes for my time off work were stating, like, Brad's suffering such bad mental health that it'd be pointless to try and talk to him directly about when he's supposed to come back to work. So that being said, is my human resources just failed to contact the doctor in question that literally stated he didn't have time to talk to me. And I was let go from my work, and in the midst of me waiting to get a second opinion from a second psychiatrist, and just in a matter of waiting for the appointment, right? Where I was smart about it, where I took all the information that I had, such as the disclosures with the false accusations, and I brought them to him. And he stated that he wasn't a lawyer, and that he couldn't understand any of the legalities of what was being said in these false accusations. And I got upset and mad, and I was like, well, you know what a lie is, you know what deception is, right? Like, you don't have to be a doctor to understand that when you're reading it. And so he just informed me to leave his office, and it just turned into, long story short, it just turned into, I had gotten so many mental health warrants from the mother of my child and the police that I was brought to the psych ward and drugged on an antipsychotic. And it was the most legal amount that you can give a human being. And so that being said, it's just, I kind of gave up my fight because I was ruined mentally by this drug, where I couldn't get out of bed for about 16 hours a day other than to just go to the bathroom. And I barely brushed my teeth or showered maybe once every 2 weeks. And I eventually got the dosage lowered, because what was happening was my sexual performance with my partner was diminishing, and we were making complaints to the psychiatrist about that, that they had put me onto in the mental health clinic. And he was lowering the dose, to the point where it was actually the amount that, like, you couldn't lessen it anymore. So that being said, is my parents and family members were mentioning I should go see a family doctor to talk to, but I was scared. I didn't really think anyone would, like, help me, and I kind of fell into disparity where I just didn't have motivation to do anything, let alone go see a family doctor to try and help me.
All the stuff you said, I couldn't think of one professional in any category, police, legal, medical, or anything, that would give you the sense that you could get help.
Right, exactly. That's what the boiling point was coming down to, was just, why even try, right? And my mom said, because she works with the health system, my mom said there's a doctor that's rated the best doctor in the city. He's taking patients because he just opened up a practice. I really want you to go see him. So when I initially started legal proceedings to see my son, the legal representative said that I should just document everything. So that's what I did, was I eventually revised everything that had happened after being drugged, and went to him and just let him read it all. And he finally said, yes, Brad, I believe you're a victim of domestic abuse, and you obviously have PTSD from it. So this is what I'm going to do for you. I'm going to give you a sleeping pill so that you can finally get some rest, and take you off of this antipsychotic, and a community treatment order, where with a community treatment order, if you miss your injection at the mental health clinic, the police come and arrest you at your house. And so that had happened so many times that because I was avoiding wanting to be injected, that happened so many times that they were threatening me that they would keep me in the hospital for as long as possible for me to keep up with the injection. So I finally found a doctor that was rated the best in the city that helped me out. And I've been better ever since, and I got off of disability payments, and I worked through my trauma by reading and doing research about other people in similar situations. I did enough sleuthing and research and from scenarios that were happening that I realized that the mother of my child's boyfriend obviously had an in with the police. And so was making statements in courtrooms in front of judges like, I have a friend that'll arrest Brad's mother unless he pays me $5,000. To which, when I would go make a complaint to the RPS about that, they would come back with a phone call that states he doesn't remember saying that and he was just frustrated. So that was my biggest telltale sign of like, there's something obvious now of like there's corruption. And if I have to put it bluntly, it's maybe noble corruption on the basis of just I've had previous charges but no convictions. I had actually formulated a plan that the mental health system didn't know where I lived and didn't have my phone number.
So they still going after you?
I'm not sure because I've gone long enough where I just assume that they've given up almost, if one might say.
So you haven't got any formal way of knowing that you're off their radar?
I have. Like when I say like sleuthing and just being like resourceful, like it's just little things like you make an appointment with a psychiatrist to just once again almost in the context of just like, hey, I'm better now and I still think the way I do, and everyone around me like sees that, which it was the exact same way before I was drugged. So, and then oddly enough, you just get an answer that's like, well, you have to be referred and you're inactive in the system. So I don't even understand it, and I just choose not to even want to dwell any further. I've come to the conclusion that like things need to change with the whole aspect of just the mother's the primary caregiver when clearly she's got psychological issues. You know, even in the context of like you just given birth months ago, you must be having some sort of postpartum whatever, you know, depression or anxiety or just, I don't even know, you know, what to call it, because it's a wide spectrum, right?
Yeah.
So, I mean, just the courts need to start recognizing signs like that. I had signed adoption papers is what happened, and that's why I don't have access anymore, is because I was being presented, and this is while I was heavily drugged, I was being presented with adoption proceedings as I'm trying to get a variation through legal aid to show that I didn't owe thousands of dollars of child support, even though the courts already knew through documentation with doctors that I was on disability and was garnishing my disability Canada pension plan, half of it. So I don't understand how the maintenance enforcement could like assume I'd owe thousands of dollars when they're literally already getting payments from a disability aspect, right? So that being said, is I was just not in the right mind frame of obviously being drugged heavily on an antipsychotics, and I kind of wanted to still see my son, but had doubts of me being able to parent him.
Sure.
So I had to weigh that heavily in my mind, especially considering in maintenance enforcement court, a judge informed me I should search my soul. And that being said, is how do I take care of a child when I'm so drugged I can't get out of bed all day? So I just signed the adoption papers, almost knowing full well, with even the false accusations prior to upon reading this proceeding, that it was false as well. And one of the formalities under the Adoption Act of Saskatchewan 1998 is that you have to be common law for a step parent to adopt a child. To which they claimed they were common law, but from talking to family members of hers, and just among other routes, came to learn that that wasn't the case. Legal aid outsources law services to private law firms now in Saskatchewan, and I had a lawyer who was wanting to make that aware that you can't necessarily have a disabled person be having an informed decision, regardless of whether they say yes or no to a proceeding. And then, as part of the formalities, is just you can't appeal it for any reason past 30 days. So that's what he was trying to challenge the Constitution, this lawyer, in terms of like, well, you should be able to if you made a decision that, like, while you were disabled mentally, maybe even physically, but the case being in my case, it would be mentally, right? So he was wanting to challenge the Constitution and have legal aid pay the services, which they denied the funding for. So it's strange where I've come to the conclusion, just life here from where we come from, it does not work well for males that want to see their children. I was no longer living off of $420 a month from my CPP disability. I was getting the full amount. And that basically allowed me to have my mental health status like be
Improved.
a little bit better, improved. Yeah, like I was drugged for uttering threats to police, and then this harassment got included. So it was strange where when I got the disclosure from uttering threats to the police, where basically all I said was just like, stop coming at me with your corruption, you know. I would get this I got this disclosure that had absolutely nothing in it about what I had said to them and what even led up to an arrest, right? To where I was going to court repeatedly, and then what happened, I was drugged, and then they charged me with harassing him. Where oddly enough, I had assumed I had a file open from him harassing me. When I finally, like this antipsychotic, they say it takes a year to like set into your body and your mind, right? For it to start working. And then so when I came off of it, it took about a good year too to finally get back to normal. And I started doing research about it, and apparently like is a massive lawsuit where they give it to people that are like so extremely violent it has to outweigh their own health, where it's known that when upon making it, the makers didn't divulge in testing that it causes diabetes and high blood pressure and massive weight gain and stuff, right? So the funny thing too is when they were asking me in the hospital before like giving me this drug if I have diabetes and heart problems running the family, I informed them, but yet they still give it to me. So that being said, is just when I finally like became clear-headed, I would just start asking my mother and my child through emails, because it was court ordered already at one time to communicate through emails. So I just thought I'd do that again and just be like, hey, I know everything that's happened has been rough and time has passed, where I'd like to think time heals all wounds. But it's just a matter of like, it's beneficial for our child to have both his parents in his life, And if you must know, like I made a conscious decision to like not smoke marijuana anymore, or like, even drink alcohol for that matter, which I never drank it excessively ever, like even when I was with her. So, I mean, just, odd things that I'm just throwing out that just would maybe hoping that she would take notice of, just like whatever I said that was beneficial for her child would finally get through to her, And then she would just come back with, I'll bring legal consequences against you if you continue to contact me. So it eventually even led into, she just blocked me from making emails to her. We always had good communication. That was the most baffling part to me after the end of our relationship, or even just, it was almost amicable or whatever they say, at the end of it, where it was just, we're going to part ways, and this is, I guess, how we'll have to parent our child, and we'll figure it out along the way, because it was both new to us. So something went wrong in her head where I can only assume this guy that I assume is almost a professional domestic abuser got into her head somehow to just make things for the worst. Just miss my son. I really miss my son. And so just wait for him to contact me one day, I guess. Because apparently that's how it goes for a lot of males, men. Sorry. Yeah, that's about it.